Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're joining us from around the world. Welcome to Web3 Warriors, episode 113, featuring Annie M., Global Marketing Lead with SNPIT, which is an interesting new snap-to-earn platform that's really gamifying photography through NFTs and blockchain. Welcome, Annie. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, man. It's my pleasure to be here today.
I'm really looking forward to hearing more about this project. It seemed really interesting when I found out about it and had this opportunity to speak with you. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity. So again, welcome everyone to the show. This is Web3 Warriors. I'm your host, David Karoma. I go by Chrome in the metaverse. And today we're going to be looking at the topic of photography in Web3 and blockchain. You know, as many of the listeners of the show know, I am an avid collector of art on the blockchain, and some of the art that I collect is definitely photography. But I have noticed, you know, if you aren't an established photographer with a lot of kind of good resume, professional resume behind you and experience kind of selling your art at the high tier, it is very hard to kind of break into the NFT market as a photographer. And so I think it's an interesting angle to take on kind of photography and blockchain and Web3 to kind of gamify it and make it more fun and kind of engaging for maybe the mid-level to amateur photographers like myself, right? So when I found out about SNPIT and I kind of looked into it a little bit, I just thought it was a really cool kind of use case, and maybe it's going to bring the topic of photography in Web3 and photography in blockchain a little bit more to the forefront. I know it is largely based in Japan, and so it's got a bigger audience out that way, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that and what your plans are for the North American market and everything else you're working on. But it's a really cool concept, and again, Annie, thank you for joining us. And so with that, we'll just turn it over to Annie and really get into a little bit of interesting questions about, you know, what is SNPIT and what are they really doing when it comes to bringing photography onto the blockchain and gamifying photography. And maybe before we jump into all of that, Annie, could you just tell us a little bit about your background? You know, what brought you to blockchain? Why are you interested in Web3? And how did you get a spot at SNPIT? Thanks for joining us.
Sure, appreciate it, Chrome. No, pleasure is mine once again. But yeah, just to give a little background, you know, I joined the SNPIT team about a year ago. So I'd always been kind of dabbling with, you know, crypto, amateur trader since I was a student. And obviously, you know, when you're a student, you barely have any money, so it's whatever little, you know, money that you saved up through your part-time hustles. I used to just kind of dump it into crypto.
Nice.
And not knowing what's going on at all. You know, I didn't even know about the bull run, the bear run. I was more of I can't even call myself an amateur trader, because I was more of the guy who was like, yeah, I'm interested in investing, but you know, I'm just gonna kind of, if this person who's really smart is saying it, it must be really good. All right, let me just throw in some money in there, see what happens. So that was kind of the intellectual caliber I was with in crypto. But
when it comes to investing in crypto, I'm pretty much still at that level.
yeah, I think a lot of us are, right?
Yeah.
It's even in the industry right now, I realize there's a lot of people who are like that, despite being in the industry, you know, myself included. But so yeah, so that's kind of and you know, I used to work I used to be in the startup ecosystem, nothing to do with Web3, just kind of working for different startups, So I've always been interested in tech. I'm not an engineer by background, but I used to work a lot with engineers. But essentially the roles I've held have always been around, business development. And I used to sell or do BD for a lot of products where it's cutting edge. So half the time, the clients or the potential clients that I'm speaking to barely know anything about that technology, or it's because it's so cutting edge, and I'm just basically convincing them why they need to get onto this, right now, and be ahead of their competitors. So that's kind of my background, always in tech, been doing startup stuff. And then about a year ago, I was, looking for a change. And that's the time I met our founder, Toshi. And I'd known him since I was for a few years, but we never really talked about work. It was just we had more of a casual friendship. And he was like, "Hey, by the way, I'm working on something pretty interesting, and I'd love to use your expertise. I'd love to get your help. Do you want to be a part of it?" And I was like, "Sure, why not? Like, let me give it a shot." So it's funny because initially I started off as like a part-timer, just kind of consulting a little bit, and then before I knew it, and I was like, deep. I was in deep, and and then it's been a year. That's
You
really
just kind of fell in love with the project, or what would you say like really
yeah.
kept you?
I think I fell in love with the job, with the project, of course, and I think I've seen a lot of founders, both Web 2, Web 3, and a lot of entrepreneurs. I myself run another company which is completely unrelated to Web 3, but it's interesting because these founders who are really kind of committed to their vision, they kind of just suck you in. Like, they have this, it's not like, I'm to use the words of, like, the Steve Jobs biography, but it's like a reality distortion field where however much you're not involved or knowledgeable of that particular field, they just make you feel like they're about to do something really crazy and really big and huge. And even if you're not too like knowledgeable, you just kind of get sucked into it and dragged in. And before you know it, you're like really committing yourself to it. And I've noticed this happen to me a few times over several entrepreneurs, where, initially I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I want to commit full time. I'll just help out a little bit. And before I know it, I'm like well over full time.
Head and
So
shoulders
yeah, so
immersed.
it's definitely the kind of the so-called power of the founder as well. But so
Nice.
far, I'm enjoying it.
Cool. So you're kind of swayed deeper into Web3, more of like surface level crypto interest. And is this kind of your first Web3 project that you've been like kind of actively involved in at this business development level?
Yeah, 100%. This
Okay.
is my first Web3 project, so that I'm sure you can imagine. The learning curve was definitely high
Yeah.
because what you see and what you read about as a novice, when you're not in the industry, is completely different to when you're part of the industry and you're playing the game with the industry. So, definitely a lot of things to learn about. Um, but so far hanging in there.
Awesome, man. Well, that's a pretty cool backstory. It's a little different for sure. And looking at what you do at SNPIT, then tell us a little bit about SNPIT. What is the kind of mission and vision? And yeah, we're on the website here at lp.snipit.xyz. But I'd love to hear a little bit about just kind of the elevator pitch, and then we'll get into a little bit more of the details under the hood.
Got you. Got you. So, not to call you out or anything, but it's actually pronounced snap it.
Snap
And
it. Oh, snap.
oh, snap. Yeah, exactly. And people often think, is it something to do with like snapping your fingers? But no, it's snap, taking photos. So Snap It, the Snap It app is essentially a GameFi play to earn platform where essentially users take photos and they can earn rewards. And the photos are pretty much anything that you want to take. It could be a beautiful architecture, just nature, the streets, whatever you want to take. and you battle with other users. So for example, if you and I, Chrome, we take a picture and we put it on the platform for a battle, maybe you and I randomly get matched up together, and other users in the platform vote to see who did it better. Or it could be subjective, right? That's the interesting part about photos. But they vote to decide which picture they like better, and the first person to reach 10 votes wins. And obviously, if you win the battle, you earn a little bit of rewards. And if you ended up voting for the photo which won, you also earn a little bit of rewards. So this is kind of these different, there are all these different gamifying aspects involved around the idea of taking photos. And one of the most important pieces to this is we have NFTs, as with most play to earns, and our NFTs are called camera NFTs. So what does it do? The camera NFTs essentially is the tool with which you take your photos. So I know there's a lot of move to earns, walk to earns, and it's very similar conceptually. Instead of like shoes or something, you're using these camera NFTs to basically take photos. So all photos taken on the SNPIT app has to be through the app. So you can't upload any photos. This is where it gets interesting, because that means that you're taking these photos authentically, like it's authentic, and it's not altered, it's not AI generated, it's not photoshopped. So there's no way for you to really cheat. You can't, use a crazy good DSLR, like edit it, to as much as you can with some crazy, like some Photoshop skills, and then use that photo to enter the platform. You have to take it through the app. So it kind of provides a relatively fair playing field for everyone.
So the app doesn't allow for like customization, or what about your phone camera? I assume that must impact it a bit, right? If you have like a better quality phone camera.
No, it actually doesn't, because
Wow.
obviously, if you're at like, I don't know, 2 megapixels as opposed to like 12 megapixels, there will come a point where it does impact it.
Right.
But initially, if you're, let's say the camera NFTs they do have a level, right? So it's like level 1, and the top end it's like level 80 or maybe even a bit higher. But when you're at like level 1, essentially your photos are blurred, they're pixelated. So the whole idea is you start taking pixelated photos, you start voting for other people's photos, you start earning, and using your earnings, you keep upgrading your camera, and eventually you'll get to a point where it's not pixelated at all. So that's when you're finally taking your phone native quality pictures. So maybe at that point, if you have a 2-3 megapixel phone camera as opposed to like a latest, iPhone 16 Pro, I'm sure there's a marginal difference there, or more than marginal. But other than that, it's a pretty fair playing field. And so kind of going back to, I know you mentioned it as an elevator pitch, but I know I'm well beyond the elevator, unless we're going up a really tall building like the Burj. But
You're good.
So the whole idea ecosystem that we're actually building is not just a play to earn game app, but we're building a photo database using these photos which are taken through the game app. And the photo database obviously has a lot of value, because enterprises or developers, anyone can really utilize these photos for whatever use cases. So let me give you an example. For example, maybe you want to train an AI model. I know it's a bit ironic because we don't allow AI photos in the platform, but if you need training data for your AI models, you're building some, photo recognition software or something, you need a big database, you can access this database. And because it's a whole blockchain project and it's GameFi and all of that, users who kind of contributed their photos to the database obviously gets a reward. Another example is in Japan.
Do you get access to the database as well, or how does that work from the user perspective?
So it's more of an opt-in. So the database is, we haven't released it yet, but it will be an opt-in or out basis. So you can choose to, if you don't want to provide your photos for the database, then you can choose to do so. If you want to provide, create basically another income stream, you can do that as well. So, and we're talking to a lot of businesses, and they have kind of multiple use cases for the photos as well. We can get into the details later if you want,
Sure.
but yeah, that's kind of the whole.
The data implications are interesting for sure. So
Yeah.
sticking to the NFT piece first, and then we'll look more at the data and what you can do with that,
Sure.
and how I'm guessing that might bring in a little more revenue on the back end, right?
Right.
But SNPIT, apologies on the pronunciation. I thought I got that right. But I'm looking at the NFTs on Rarible right now, and they're cool little like 3D cameras and very cool. So I'm wondering, where does the intersection between, you know, kind of Web2 app, which is on the Apple Store, it's on the Google Store, you know, how does that kind of connect with these NFTs that I'm looking at here on Rarible? If I started the journey by buying one of these NFTs with Polygon or with USDC, it looks like a couple of them are listed in USDC, what would be the next step? And then would it be basically connecting my wallet on the app? And you know, how does someone journey from the blockchain into the app? And then what's that like?
Yeah, so I know some of your viewers are, you know, not necessarily Web3, fully in Web3. So I'll try to keep it simple, but it's pretty straightforward for someone who's used to Web3. You download the app, you start off with a free camera. So it's not a camera NFT. And right now, if you want to buy a camera NFT to get started, as you said, you can go on Rarible, purchase it, put it in your wallet. And on the app, you can connect your MetaMask wallet to the app. So that's kind of how it loads your NFT collection onto the app. And so, yeah, essentially downloading the app and getting started is very simple, pretty straightforward. You just have to sign up, you know, get a verification code, and then you're ready to go. If you want to dabble in with the camera NFTs, then yes, you do have to go to a third-party site like Rarible, purchase it, and then connect your wallet to it.
Okay, but if you buy it at Rarible first and then you connect your wallet to it after, it's going to recognize everything? It's pretty seamless?
Yeah,
Nice.
It'll recognize it. As long as you're using the same wallet that's connected to your SNPIT app account.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. As long as you got your wallet connected on mobile as well as on the computer itself, I guess.
Exactly.
Awesome. And I'm curious as well, like, is there a mission around kind of advancing photography, as I was kind of speaking to off the top of my show, you know, as an amateur photographer myself? I'm just curious if, like, what is the kind of art implication, you know, and is that kind of an angle you're going for? Is it really just gamified? And I'm curious about the whole pixelated to non-pixelated arc as well. That's very interesting. But what's kind of the message to your average photographer out there from SNPIT?
So it's more of so obviously it's a very casual game, right? So if you're, you know, really deep into photography, to be really frank, it might be something that is your cup of tea or may not be your cup of tea.
Right.
Just because, you know, you're starting off with a really fair playing field, and, you know, if you're happy taking photos with your cool DSLR, like, you know, maybe you're not the type to want to gamify that experience. But essentially the vision or kind of the mission behind it is to rediscover, you know, the beauties of our life around our daily life through the art of taking photos. So instead of really kind of reinterpreting, I don't know why I'm I'm
No
just
worries.
like, but instead of you know, re-looking at the concept of photography itself, it's more of rediscover the beauties of life through photography. So let me give you an example. You know, even if you're not even if you don't call yourself or consider yourself as a photographer, you're probably taking photos every day, if not every other day, of something, of food, of, you know, your friends, family, people you love, of funny things, of things that happen in your day, maybe of your bosses you're not a fan of, a show you went to, some cool Christmas trees, Christmas lights, whatever it is, right? You're taking photos pretty much all the time. So the Web2 bridge here is that we are bringing a very simple game finance experience to people who are not very accustomed to traditional kind of hardcore blockchain projects or hardcore Web3 projects, which require a lot of knowledge base to even begin with. So as long as you're someone who uses your phone to take photos, it's something you can pretty much get started with. So that's number one. That's what kind of brings us closer to the Web2 community as well. And as far as the Web3 community goes, you know, it was quite interesting because as far as we're concerned, when we first started, there weren't, as far as we're aware, when we first started, there weren't any other snap to earn projects where you can truly gamify the experience of, taking photos. So it seemed like a very natural choice. There's move to earn, there's obviously the usual gaming to earn where you're properly gaming and then
map.
you're earning.
I've seen a few map to earns. Yeah.
Map to earns as well. There's drive to earn. But why is it that there's no pics to earn, right? Photos to earn, snap to earn.
For sure.
So that's kind of the angle in with which we took. And just as a little backstory, our company actually already have experience developing a photo related app. It's not really Web3, but we developed an app a few years ago called Pictier. And Pictier is like a non-verbal social media platform. So it's like, think Instagram, but without the clout and comments and numbers of likes and all of that. Like, it doesn't matter. There's no comments. There is like liking the photos, but you can't really see who's liked what photos. That concept is not there. And the main idea of this app is you can overlay photos in a particular like location. So let's just say, I don't know, I mentioned Burj Khalifa in Dubai earlier, so I'm just going to use that example. Let's just say you were using this thing. That's a nice building. Let's just say you're taking a photo from a particular angle of the Burj, right? And there's a map feature on the app where you can see where people have taken photos from. So you can go to the exact same location, and maybe another person has taken the photo in the morning, and maybe you're going to take the photo in the evening during, sunset. So you have the same angles, but it's slightly different, right? Because photos, end of the day, are very subjective. It's your perspective. You're visualizing what you're seeing at that instance.
Sure.
So no one can, in a way, recreate the same photo, in theory, right? Maybe in practicality, like you can, try to take the same photo at the same spot at the same time.
Right.
But in theory, in reality, you're never
going to be the same.
Same. It's never going to be the same. It's always unique. So we have a feature where you can overlay these two photos, so you can kind of experience it as like almost like a time. What's that feature on a normal phone? This is weird because I'm supposed to be in photography.
Time lapse.
Time lapse. That's the right word. So it's like a time lapse in the same location. You can like see the different photos that's been taken,
right,
and experience everyone else's perspective. So this got over 100K, actually over 300K downloads worldwide. And interestingly, we got a lot of downloads from outside of Japan as well. So it's quite interesting. So anyway, the reason I'm talking about this is because we already had kind of dabbled with, photography. So it was a little bit of a natural choice for us to steer towards photography and, photography in general when we're thinking of a Web3 project to build.
I see. And is there the map component to this one as well, as far as like actually knowing where every single image was taken? Like what's the...
So not yet.
Okay.
Sorry to cut you off. Not yet. We may have it in the future, but our on-chain data at the moment is geolocation and timestamp. And this kind of, matters when we're building the database, because obviously that also helps in verifying that you're actually at a certain place at a certain time taking this particular picture. But we are building another app where it's not a completely different app, but it's another game experience through photos and utilizing the camera NFT concepts that we already have. And that one has a map feature.
Okay, that's interesting. But you're saying this one does still have geolocation on the on-chain data?
That's right.
Interesting. Okay. And then, because I could see how that competing, right, where you have this like this picture versus the other picture, if you got down to, geolocated or kind of, like you said, comparing images that are in the same spot or even just the same community, kind of similar spots, that could make the whole gamification and comparison that much more kind of exciting. I'm curious, though, what is the parent company then that's kind of helping with this that you work with?
Yeah, so we are, so our parent company is a public company in Japan called Gigworks. So they are, Gigworks is not at all involved in Web3.
Mm.
They're, typical, like I don't know if I'm allowed to say typical, but traditional business.
I got you.
Um, so yeah, we are just kind of like a child company of theirs, and we also have other product lines like kind of AI products, B2B, SaaS products. So it is kind of interesting for us because we're not like a native Web3 company where
Mm.
we're just like a garage startup just building this one Web3 project, like trying to make it. No, like we've been there for a while. This is our first Web3 project, is
That's
how I'd
cool.
like
And
to
do you have any
put it.
insights
Yeah.
on what really kind of was the selling factor on getting into the Web3 space? Because we do see a lot of those Web2 developer companies just keeping heads down, focused on what they
Yeah.
know, and not really branching into this. And then there's the whole regulatory question, right? And I know you're in Japan, so I'd love to hear a little bit
Right.
about what the environment is like for crypto and NFTs in Japan. I think it's an interesting space and conversation. But yeah, like how did that happen? Why did this company decide, hey, let's try a Web3 project?
So actually, our founder, before he started off this kind of spin-off of the parent company, he was already like in charge of new business development in the parent company, and
Hmm.
he was mining Bitcoin. So
Of course.
it was kind of like he was already dabbling with crypto and blockchain, and so he knew a lot about it. So in his mind, he already had a pretty clear cut idea that he wanted to do something with Web3. He wanted to build some Web3 project,
Hmm.
but obviously, you have to play the game, and you're not gonna. It's extremely difficult if you're trying to get approval from the board or whoever's involved in a large public company,
Hmm.
saying randomly, just coming up to them and saying, hey, abandon your traditional businesses, and you got to go all in on Web3 and crypto. And
Yeah.
obviously that's not going to work. So he kind of took a very strategic approach, and first built very sound businesses. Everyone's happy. There's enough capital, whatnot, to now dabble into a Web3 project. So he really kind of built it up from ground up, and I'm happy to say that so far it's worked out.
Yeah, no doubt. That's amazing. And I saw it's kind of ranked, top 5 in the App Store around the Web3 category. Can you speak a little bit to like the feedback you've gotten so far, and the fact that I think you're getting most of the traction kind of in Japan and the East, and what you're looking at globally? What's it like right now? What's your community base right now?
Yeah, the traction's been great so far. We have approximately 10K daily active. We have several 100K downloads. I know the numbers aren't as attractive when you're looking at some global projects, but objectively speaking, I think, and I know I'm gonna sound biased because I am biased, but for a project coming out of a small island country, I think we're doing pretty well. And in Japan, we've kind of achieved the status of you walk into a room, and everyone's like, yeah, we know Snapit. So I
Okay,
think it's a
nice,
pretty
nice.
happy state of mind to be in. That being said, definitely, as you mentioned, we are trying to go global. Trying to get more users outside of Japan as well, because we think I do think, and this kind of relates to Japan as a market. Japan as a market right now is, simply put, I think it's a market which never died down on NFTs and play to earn
Hmm.
and GameFi. I think globally in our industry, we see ups and downs. We see trends come and go, and people, or just everyone in general, as an industry as a whole, we're so quick to jump onto trends and kind of ditch whatever we were
Right.
doing. And to be honest, I'm a little it's a little unfortunate, because I do know a lot of projects which were probably very sound, and probably had a lot of potential, if they were just given the time and liberty to build their project out, right? But
Right.
because we are so, like, for example, were we talking about Deepin as much as we were talking about it like this year, last year, or the year before?
Yeah.
Definitely not. Were we talking about AI as much as we were talking about it this year, in the previous years? Probably not.
Right.
But on the other hand, like, are we talking about NFTs now as much as, or even close to how much we were talking about it a couple of years ago? Definitely not. So it's so trend based and it just moves so fast, which is, I think, completely fair as well. I don't want to come across as if, I'm anti trends and um like that, but it's
It's a
just like, it's
natural
just how
thing.
it's a natural thing, right? Like
Yeah.
we're such a fast paced industry, and it's easy to get lost in that as well. Now, despite that, I think Japan has been a country where it still sticks to things it likes, and it doesn't really get swayed by the trends per se.
Hmm.
Um, and the community again here in Japan is so strong. People here are the users here, the communities here, they rarely get swayed by anything. If they decide they like something, they will stick to it.
Hmm.
And I think it has a lot of deeper connection and roots in the Japanese mentality, Japanese culture, but that's a whole nother story. But in a nutshell, I think that definitely contributed to our success in Japan. I think we definitely released at a time where NFTs and GameFi played a run, were dying down. But in Japan, it worked out for us, and now we think there might be a comeback for NFTs, or at least just good projects in general, right?
I think
Always have a
eventually
good
there's going to be a
opportunity.
comeback for NFTs, but people have
Yeah,
to believe in the long-term vision of it. And like even for example, these
exactly.
NFTs, I'm looking at your cameras here, and they're really cool. Like they're just from an art perspective, they're really cool 3D art. If
Mhm.
you love cameras, I guess takes me back to like the 90s. They look like the old point and shoot ones, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's interesting to look at how the overall trend around NFTs matters so much to these kind of projects, for better or worse, I guess. And I think that there will be, trends going back up. But to your point, I think places like Japan, small micro communities, have been kind of building and sticking it out the whole time. And so for those projects that are able to tough it out and really come back stronger, I think the wave will be good. It's gonna come back, but it's weird because I think that there has to be a type of preparation for the volatility of the crypto space, right? So, like when you look at SNPIT, do you think SNPIT's prepared? It's in a position that whatever happens crypto-wise, volatility-wise, it's a cool, fun, sticky app. Whether it's starting out in Japan, but it's slowly growing outside of there. You've kind of built it in that way that it's like almost Web 2 enough to withstand whatever happens in the Web 3 and the crypto space. Would you agree with that or no?
100%.
Yeah.
And this is something that we kept in mind when we were building this, is how do we design something which is not as, that doesn't kind of carry the volatility of the crypto markets in general as a whole. Um, and of course, it's going to be, somewhat swayed by it or somewhat influenced by it. And that's just part of how it is. But how do we make sure that, okay, just because the entire market is going down, and we've seen a bunch of projects that go down with the market. So how do we make sure that the project itself doesn't go down, stays afloat despite market conditions? And this is where it becomes very important to kind of establish the fact that we've designed the whole thing to make sure that we have a solid revenue model, a solid business model,
Mm.
where we constantly have a good source of revenue from B2B or enterprises, using the features or the asset from our perspective, the asset of having that GameFi platform. And it kind of goes back to that whole photo database thing, for example. Photography can be partnered with pretty much anything. Whether
Mm.
it's if you are I mean, literally everything, right? Like
Yeah, everything's
automotives or
visual these days.
houses
It's an
or
insta,
everything's
it's an
visual.
insta world.
Exactly. You're into modeling, cosplay, uh, anime, anything can really be connected to photography.
Yeah.
Traveling. So on the topic of traveling, we've partnered with one of the largest Japanese travel agencies, where we released like a collab NFT camera, and we have a business model because we're able to collaborate with these people. And from a travel agency's perspective, obviously it works well with photography as well.
Right.
So I think it's just finding that right way to right narrative, the right story to make it something that is can truly add value both to the users and the businesses or enterprises as well. And from a user perspective, gives them that sense of, not just gives them the sense, but it adds that layer of safety, right? That, okay, these guys are, working hard to bring a lot of partnerships. There's steady revenue, which means that the GameFi is going to stay afloat, which means that as a GameFi user, I don't have to be worried about my rewards. I can continue to earn by playing the game fair and square.
Mm-hmm.
And from the enterprise's perspective, they are, the ability to partner with the Web3 project that has a really good traction it's a use case for them, right? Large enterprises, I think especially over the next year or two, we're going to see more large enterprises setting aside budgets to do proof of concepts in Web3 or blockchain. And even, industries or companies which barely seem even related to blockchain. So I think we're giving them a pretty good avenue to test those things out. So I think that's a really big aspect, and just kind of tying it back to that whole thing about how NFTs are gonna, are they gonna make a comeback? Not, are NFTs whatnot? We are adding value to. We're basically using utility-based NFTs, right? These are NFTs which have utility. So, for example, with the travel agency's collaboration camera NFT, it has a special feature. So we don't just release collabs just because it's a cool design. Sometimes we do. If you're partnering with more of a design oriented or themed partner, then maybe that happens. But with other use cases, we actually have solid utility value. So with the travel one, if you use that particular camera and take pictures at certain locations, you get a surge in how much you earn. So why does that matter for a travel agency? Because then they can drive traffic, right? If you're a travel agency and you're partnered with, let's say, a tourist location, if you tell these users, hey, use the camera and take a picture when you go here, you'll earn double or triple the amount you'd usually earn through one snap. Then it drives traffic to that location. And as I said, we have geolocation and timestamp, so we know that people are actually there and taking the pictures at that place. So we're bringing a lot of additional values and utility with our partnerships as well. And each camera can have a special feature that really signifies that particular partnership. So I think that's what makes us unique, especially in terms of, keeping the company afloat and in a healthy financial situation.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I'm seeing there are different kind of addition of cameras, and looking at the activity on chain. I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot of interesting activity, people trading these things, and yeah, it's really cool. So you speak a little bit to the reward structure with SNPIT, sorry. And
no worries.
On the token, right? I noticed there's a swap because I guess there was an STP token and now there's an SNPT token. I think you mentioned the utility tokens and how there's the NFTs, the actual graphics, and then there's the actual token, like the community reward token, right? Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah. So in the game, we have 2 points. So SDP is actually a point. So we call it the SNPIT points. And then we have something called free points, FPs. Essentially, how you earn the two is just a difference on the different gameplays that we have. Typically, to put it very simply, FPs are typically earned through free-to-play actions. So for example, if you don't have a camera NFT and you're just using the free camera and you're using whatever, features of the game that you can use without a camera NFT, you're typically earning more of the FPs. For whatever you use the camera NFTs for and earning through the game, you tend to earn more of the STPs. And again, you can earn both as well. And the STPs can be converted to our SNPIT tokens, SNPT, which is trading on 2 exchanges. And the FPs, the free points, can be converted to gift cards, digital gift cards. So depending on the country, it's a little different on what you can actually convert it to. But in Japan, you can turn it into, Amazon gift card or whatever, different digital payment systems.
Okay. So would you say the FP token is not quite Web3? It's not fully on chain. It's more of like a kind of internal to your server, and then you pay it out in whatever.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's cool.
So the FPs are essentially a way for people who are less inclined in Web3 or less knowledgeable in Web3 to still feel like they are, it's a play to earn, right? Like you're going to have to be able to earn. So we're giving them an opportunity to still cash out. And the STPs can be converted to the SNPIT tokens, which again, in the long run, it's a way for you to cash out. But one thing to mention is we are expanding the ecosystem. As I mentioned, we're moving away from this whole like snap to earn kind of so I used to kind of introduce myself as, hey, I'm snap to earn, but we are like expanding beyond that. I'll give you an example. 3 restaurants in Japan started accepting our SNPT tokens as a payment form.
No way.
And yeah,
That's
which is kind
awesome.
of, I think, unheard of.
Yeah, that's what we like to hear,
For
real world application,
exactly,
right?
exactly. So, and the best part is we weren't even the ones to pitch it to them. The restaurant owners came to us and were like, "Hey, we really love your project. We really believe in the project. Can we start accepting it as payment?" And we're like, "Well, yeah, as long as your accounting and stuff is you're doing
Yeah.
it right and all that, that's on you.
Yeah.
But yeah, for us, this is
Exactly.
not a problem at all."
Now we get to
And they're
tell our
like,
whole community,
"Fantastic."
hey, go use your SNPIT coins over at this restaurant.
Exactly.
And that works for them because they're getting free promo and it works for you. That's awesome. Win-win. That's
Exactly.
Web3, baby. It's like,
That's Web3. And that's really at the, all it's like that beautiful moment, right? When you're like, whoa, like this really just started turning into something real, like something that, you can actually see it or experience it in real life. Because end of the day, like of course with the GameFi, you are experiencing taking photos in real life, but okay, sure, you play the game, you cash out, and then if that's the end of story, then our story is known, right? Like in a month's time, we're gonna be done. Like as with
Right.
most projects, like you go up and down, right? But
Yeah.
we're building all these different use cases, and these use cases are being formed organically. So we really see this SNPT or the SNAPit ecosystem something beyond GameFi. The GameFi is just that kind of phase one of getting people accustomed to the idea, sourcing these photo database and to build the database. But we are expanding beyond that, where the photos become a commodity, the data becomes a commodity, obviously with a very clear distinction that people who provided this data are rewarded for it, unlike things that we are not a huge fan of, where your data is just being monetized for no reason,
Basically
I mean,
every
without
other
you
social
knowing. But
media app out
every
there.
other social media,
Every
right?
other app out there, frankly, they're all taking our data. And
Exactly.
so what do you make of this idea? We often like to say, it's Web3 is ushering in an era of data sovereignty, right? And going away from this
Right.
era of kind of data vampires and just, basically people not realizing the value in their own data and giving it away for free because they really love this app, Like I
Right.
look at social media like Blue Sky, I look at things like gamification, or sorry, GameFi, and yeah, bringing that idea of actual earning into video games. And I think that social media is such an interesting cross section when it comes to that, but specifically looking at the data, right, and how you're kind of monetizing through data, but also kind of giving the data back to the users. Can you speak to that a little bit? And do you think that Web3 is really ushering in this kind of data sovereignty? Because the traditional guys are still winning right now. Meta's up, and a lot of other companies are up right now while they're continuing their kind of usual typical data sucking ways. And it's very profitable, right? So I just wonder, I want to believe that Web3 is kind of ushering in this real sea change of how we view our data. But what do you think of that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, the Web3 kind of bringing change in the whole data, right, is, I think it's happening. I think it's real. But at the same time, I am also someone who believes that we need killer apps. And without killer apps, the day-to-day people aren't gonna, be like be kind of accustomed to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say right now, based on your example, you have to be someone who's somewhat aware and knowledgeable in order to have even form a notion that, no, I do not want my data to be utilized without my consent or whatever that is.
Mm.
Um, but the average Joe, if I may, is not gonna really be, you have your apps, your daily life is going fine. Like you're not gonna really think about it. It's
Yeah.
not in the forefront of your mind, right? So I think that's what it's a matter of killer apps, and it's a matter of time as well. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
coming. I think it will come. It might take a bit of time, but It's like going from, the era of like Blackberries, where it was either the really rich kids or obviously the businessmen or
Hmm.
business people who
Hmm.
used to have the Blackberries, but the regular people would just have their phones. Um, Despite the fact that people, by the time Blackberries were, quite, used by a lot of people, a lot of these personas, um, most people had email accounts, had internet access,
Yeah.
would use the internet, right? But why is it that people didn't seem like they needed to be able to access the internet or email from their phones? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And then the smartphones started coming, and then iPhones came, and then boom, by like
Yeah.
iPhone 3GS, not even 3GS, I would say around iPhone 4
Yeah.
is around the time when most people started switching to like a smartphone.
Yeah, and reading their
Um, so
emails on the phone and texting a whole lot
exactly.
more because it was just so much easier. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And then obviously we know the remaining, 20-30% of the population, like, our maybe our grandparents or someone who were still using the flip phones because they're like, no, I'm good with this. And then another 10 years later, they're like, no, I want to FaceTime with my grandkids. So
Right, right.
eventually they get it too. So there's like that funnel and that phases to any new technology and their adoption, right? So I do think it's a matter of time. It's a matter of how good of apps, or services that we as service providers can build and provide.
Mm.
I think it really depends on that. But one thing I can say for sure is today, right now, that where we're at, I think we still have some time, some way to go.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, like even for us, right? Why is it that not every Web2 user are using, or to be completely frank, why is it that not every Web2 user have the Snap It Up on their phones? The same reason. We're not building something that's as unanimous as Instagram or
Of course, of
whatever
course.
other
But like
apps,
you
right?
say, it's
So
gotta
I
you gotta
think
build somewhere, right? And you gotta
exactly.
get the building blocks kind of piece by piece, and it makes sense. Killer apps are huge, and just time and understanding, and people wanting to see something different, And it's almost like, I don't know if you're familiar with this idea of almost sneaking in the blockchain and just like not mentioning NFTs, not getting too like Web3 about it. And kudos to you, because I think you guys are actually putting the Web3 piece on the forefront and really, snap to earn and talking about the NFTs that are incorporated in it. But what do you make of this whole idea of like, oh, just don't say NFTs, and that will, we'll just kind of like trick people into adopting Web3? Do you have any thoughts around that?
Uh, I definitely don't like the idea of tricking people into adopting Web3. I think it goes back to like how, and what I mean by killer apps is how seamless are we making it? It's where who are people don't even have to think that like you are, you know, that there's some process involved in being in Web3 or using these apps, if that makes sense. I think wallets are a good example.
Right.
Like connecting your MetaMask wallet, like, and I'm a hypocrite because our app does this now, um, but to be really honest, in the long term, like I don't see a future where we're gonna have to be, having different like accounts, different wallets. Like it's like, okay, what's this key? Like, how do I memorize it? Whatnot? Like, it should just be like a bank account. Like, and what I mean by a bank account is not the whole idea of centralization, but
Mhm.
the simple seamlessness, right? It's
Right.
like, okay, like, sure, maybe there are times when you still need to want to go in somewhere and then deal with your accounts or something, having that platform or
Mhm.
having ATMs, and which ATMs might be, gone eventually, hopefully, if we go full digital.
Yeah.
Um, but the
But
whole idea is that experience has to be seamless. We can't have, it's kind of like an era where, you had to kind of set up your own dial-up, right, with the internet. I don't think people nowadays kids nowadays even know what dial-up is.
yeah,
But
they
it's
don't even
like,
know what their
hey
modem
kids,
is these days.
exactly, right? Your modem, and like, or back when, like, when you had the internet line on, you couldn't use your phone or
Oh yeah.
your landline.
Now we're
Good
aging
times.
ourselves, man.
Now we're aging ourselves, right? But it's now, if you talk to kids now, like, or like youth now, they would be like, what do you mean you had to get into a step one, step two, step three until your computer got connected to the internet? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, isn't there just a Wi-Fi and you just select the network, put a password in? It's like, what do you mean dial-up? It's like opening that. Remember the back in the
Yeah,
days when you're
yeah,
like
yeah.
opening it up,
It's like the
clicking it.
cycle of from Web 1, Web 2, and now Web 3 is almost just like a full
Exactly.
360. And we're not there yet, right? We're still firmly
We're
in
not
Web
there
2.
yet.
We're just like barely cracking the door open to Web 3. And, that's why I love this show.
Exactly.
I love talking to developers like you and people that are kind of on the front leading edge of what's happening in the space right now. Because it is fascinating, but it is also, tries your patience a little bit, right? Like I remember at the end
Exactly.
of 2021, early 2022, just being so gung ho about GameFi, about NFTs, about art on the blockchain, and this whole creator economy, blowing up on the blockchain with sovereignty and peer-to-peer transactions, cutting out all the middle people, and unfortunately, a lot of that narrative kind of fell by the wayside with the complete collapse of certain cryptos and the FTX scandal and all of that. And to your point
Yeah.
about trends, it just seems like, oh, I guess we'll wait. Hopefully they catch up eventually. I'm still on the wave. You're still on the wave. Some people are still on the wave trying to help push things forward or create new apps. And I think that is a huge part, is just building, right? We just got to keep building.
Absolutely.
That's what it comes down to more than anything else, I think.
Yeah, I got to keep
Awesome.
grinding.
Yeah. So I'm curious on the blockchain piece. I don't know how much you can get technical with it. I've noticed a lot of them are listed in Polygon. So is it strictly Polygon that you're working with for kind of the Web3 component of the app?
Yeah, our app's on the Polygon chain at the moment, and maybe down the line, we'll consider something, but as of now, it's what it is.
Yeah, and on the back end is like everything's cool, because I've been hearing kind of whispers that,
Yeah.
yeah, I've been hearing these whispers that Polygon is slowly getting more expensive, right? And now it's like, oh, maybe we should go to Arbitrum, or maybe we should go to
Yeah,
Base, or like da 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 da, and it's like these fractions of pennies, but those pennies add up, right? If you're talking a bunch of
that's
on-chain transactions in a day, you might have thousands of dollars worth of pennies that end up, landing on you for expenses in a day. So I'm just curious if that's something that's on your radar. It's become looking like it could be an issue, or if you're not really concerned about that side of things.
I mean, it'd be crazy if I said, it's not something we haven't considered at all. It's been on our radar for sure.
Mm.
But I think, it's once you're on one chain, and just as a backstory, I think it's important to mention that Polygon is, despite what people may say, globally, Polygon still has a pretty solid footing in Japan.
Nice.
Um, so I think, as a Japanese project, it was quite a natural choice for us to go on Polygon. But
That's cool.
I think going forward, it's definitely, especially with us, our project globalizing, and we're kind of, our ecosystem growing, as I mentioned. It's something like we're not able to just call ourselves a game platform now, right? So considering that, and considering all the different use cases I mentioned, that our tokens are being used as payment forms and in restaurants. So with a lot of these different use cases coming up, I think, definitely we're gonna have to, think of something. I don't know what yet, to be completely honest. But all I can say is it does come up in our
Okay.
weekly or bi-weekly meetings.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm not looking to get too much internal conversation. I was just
Yeah.
curious, but I respect that, and that's really interesting. It's cool to know that Polygon is still very popular in Japan. It's very popular all over the world, honestly, but it's just the
Mhm.
layer two
Right.
battle that is continuing to play out, right? And frankly, like, I'm kind of sick of all the layer twos. Like, if
Yeah.
you have your reason for being, that's cool, but like, one or two layer twos to win them all. I think like we don't need like 20 of them. And I love Ethereum as a Canadian innovation, as somebody who has a unhealthy amount of Ethereum NFTs,
Yeah.
art on the Ethereum blockchain. I'm definitely here for long-term Ethereum. So, and I get the need for layer two, because those transaction fees are no joke. And I don't know if we're ever going to go back to 2021 where people were okay, stomaching a $300 transaction fee or a $500
Yeah, man.
transaction fee. I don't know if we'll ever get back to that, but it was crazy, and I was
It
guilty
was
of that.
crazy.
Yeah,
100%.
it's
It was a
brutal.
good time, though. It was a good time to
It
be
was,
alive and be part of it.
yeah, it was fun, most definitely. I'm curious on the app development side, being a Web3 project. Did you face any friction from the Apple Store or the Google Store around kind of leading with Web3, saying snap to earn, talking about NFTs?
Does it put me in a bad light if I speak honestly?
No.
No, I'm just joking. It was definitely we had to do a couple reviews, and especially I think App Store is a little more strict. So we had to change a couple wordings, and there are things we can do, there are things we cannot do. I think you can kind of pull the pieces in together about why we're using MetaMask, why you have to connect your wallet, so on and so forth. But so yeah, there is a little bit of, and I think there we are paying the price a little bit in terms of user experience. And I hope that with all the news that we're reading, in the US and all, maybe things might change a little since both are US based platforms. So
Yeah, yeah,
um fingers crossed. But yeah,
yeah.
we have faced a little bit of, I wouldn't even call that as much as trouble, because in this industry and like being in a place like Japan, like you're gonna have to find right ways to do it. I'm not even saying like wrong ways, but like right ways to do it.
Hmm.
So just redoing a couple of things is not a big deal. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
not as straightforward as just doing a, I don't know, tap revenge or something.
Yeah, yeah. The traditional Web 2 stuff, it is a little
Additional
bit
Web
more
two.
hoops to jump through and regulatory oversight. And then, yeah, the App Store Apple is kind of well known for being not necessarily hostile, but you definitely need to check off a bunch of boxes if you're going to get a Web3 project on there. But there have been a few, and to
Exactly.
their credit, there's a few GameFis, the Bored Ape guys with their Dookie Dash app. It's actually kind of fun. It's a pretty cool stuff. So a few of them seem to be making it through. So shout out to SNPIT and being able to do that. On the data
Appreciate
side,
it.
so you're getting very
Mhm.
rich photo data mainly in Japan right now. I don't know if you can speak to kind of the percentage of your users that are outside of Japan, but I
Mhm.
imagine, when looking at that data conversation and the value in the B2B and enterprise space of, that data from around the world, you definitely want to expand, right? And go pretty global with it because it's going to become that much more valuable, right? So I'm just curious, how is that going and what is kind of the ask to us over here in the West, who might want to see your project succeed? How can we help, and how is it going right now? Like, what are you looking at numbers wise?
100%. So at the moment, I would say roughly around 80% is from Japan.
Mm,
Another 10 to 15% split between Italy and obviously, yeah, mostly Italy and Spain actually,
interesting.
and roughly just below 5% for maybe Philippines, and a little bit of Southeast Asia, and the remaining like 5% or so just split over all over the world,
Okay.
mostly in Asia. So Japan is pretty natural because we started, our founder is Japanese. We're a Japanese company. We first started marketing in Japan. So, I think the traction, and we did put a lot of effort. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like the team put a lot of effort in. Um, we really just, kind of got the community together, and we've done a lot of community events as well. So I think in Japan the effort was definitely put in, but definitely we reap the rewards of it as well. Italy is a very interesting one because Philippines, I think I'm not going to get into much detail because it's a pretty well known,
Yeah, they
GameFi
do
land.
love their GameFi and
They
anything
do
to
love
earn,
their,
right?
exactly,
Game to
anything to
earn,
earn. Yeah.
anything. Yeah, for sure.
So they are, they're super cool. They love, trying any X2E out. So yeah, Philippines is that, but Italy is really interesting because we do see a lot of photos from Italy on our platform. It's like this, I don't know, it's this, I have this interesting image of like an Italian movie where it's kind of in like sepia, and it's like you're going through the small rural streets of Italy on like a Vespa or something, and then you
Let's
see
go.
like you take like it's like a very sunset-y vibe, right?
Yeah.
And we see a lot of really good pictures from there, and it's interesting because even with Pictier, our Web2 photo app, without any marketing, zero ads, zero marketing, we randomly started getting a lot of users from Italy, and
That's
we
wild.
saw pretty much the same thing with SnapIt. So maybe there's, I don't know, if you have any Italian listeners, I'd love to know, like, is Italy, do they love photos? Is it like a
I
cultural
would have to
thing?
think it has to do with the tourism overlap. Something about like a
Right.
random people landing in Italy and looking up like, I need a cool photography app for this experience. That's
Right,
what I would
right.
think off the top of my head. That's where my PR mind would go. Thinking
No,
demographics in the region.
that totally makes sense. So yeah, I mean,
That's pretty
that
cool
actually
though.
gives me a lot of new ideas, but we'll speak of that
There you go, Mr.
later. But
Marketing Mind. Get it
yeah,
going. Yeah.
but yeah, so it's a very interesting breakdown, and going forward, you know, a lot of times, especially other marketing agencies, because they're always trying to pitch you, ideas, and they want a deal.
Of course.
They always ask me like, where do you want to go to next? And I understand from a business point, like from a marketing strategy point, you need to have a clear idea on what your strategy is, where you're going, and all that. But my ask to your listeners, or I guess today our listeners, is um how, like, it's photography. Anyone can do it, everyone can do it, and what I want to see on the platform is just really, really cool pictures from all over the world, battling and just posting on our platform. So we have a feed of like really high winners on the platform, and you can like scroll through, and right now, like, there's mostly it's Japan, a little bit of Italy, um but I want to see like literally the world, world views, like different pictures in there. So yeah, give it a shot, give it a
Oh,
try.
I'm definitely gonna check it out. And I mean,
Please do.
as far as NFTs, right? I'm looking the average price probably around 240, 250 Polygon, which right now is sitting around 125 Americans. Not too bad to get the holder. But you were mentioning there is also the kind of app free side of it. You can vote on
Yeah.
pictures. You can get your FP points and still get gift cards and things like that. So maybe just wrap up the structure and the reward structure one more time for everybody, and how that kind of works as far as like what you can do without the NFT, and then why the advantage of buying the NFT.
100%. If you're a free to play user, you just download the app, get started. You won't be able to participate in what's called the main battle, but you can participate in casual battles, friend battles, choose it, and even voting for other users. If you want to, really kind of get into the earning mindset, you want to start taking some dope photos, really upgrade your quality, your level on the game, go over to Rarible or any of our other official platforms. Make sure you check that it's SNPIT official,
Mhm.
and go ahead, purchase NFT. If you want, if you're someone with a big budget and a big pocket, go for a high level NFT, so you can kind of get right into it and start. You want to cut the chase of like building up your pixelation and like going clean. So get like a level 50, 60. But if you still want to just kind of get started, you can go for a cheaper one or a lower level one and build your way up as well. Have a MetaMask wallet, put it in that, connect it, and yeah, just snap away. Take any photos. Don't worry too much about winning initially. Casual battles is the reason we have casual battles is so that so your photos are not pixelated in casual battles. So whatever level you are, everyone gets native quality photos. So it's a fair playing. It's a fair playing ground. So yeah, I would suggest everyone to just give it a try, start taking photos, and honestly, friend battles is my recommendation, because you can basically issue a code and host like a closed group of friends up to 8. So let's
Nice.
say, I don't know, like you're going to like
Does that stay
oh,
private though, or does like the winner of your friend battle still go to the public feed?
no, so actually the whoever votes for it,
Hmm.
it's voted in the public field.
Oh,
So
okay.
none of the 8 of us can't vote. Any
Ah,
of the 8, yeah, no one of the 8 can vote. We're letting the rest of the user base in the SNAPit community vote and
nice,
decide who won. So it's
nice.
like, let's say you got a bet with like, 8 of your brothers and sisters, and you're just like, yo, okay, let's settle this. Like, take a picture, upload it. Like, all right, whoever wins the bet.
Yeah,
But yeah, there's different ways you can use it. So I would just love for everyone to check it out, and I'm always open for feedback. So if
yeah.
anyone's like has some crazy good ideas, or they want to host something, they want to do something in another country, we'll
Well,
be there.
I was
We'll
going to
do it.
mention
Like,
I'm a big fan of IRL events, and I attend a few. I help organize a few. Last year, we had an
mhm.
event at Art Basel in Miami. We were looking at pulling one together for next month, but it doesn't look like we'll get it going for this December. But we also always attend NFT.NYC, and I've been there the last 3 years in a row. So we always have events. We take part in satellite events and things like that there. And then there's also Blockchain Futurist in Toronto. So if you are looking to kind of make a splash with SNPIT, I'd love to help out as far as putting you in the right place, or even just connecting you with different events where I think you could make a really good splash. And it's really cool. I didn't want to lose track of that piece around the different levels though, because I find like that's kind of an interesting way to make it a little more sticky, right? And kind of build up what you're doing, starting from kind of the pixelated to the higher quality. But just to be clear, so if I go and buy like a level 9, I'm looking at one here, looking at the properties, right? And it has the different level numbers under there. So if you buy a level 9 as opposed to a level 1 or 2, this is going to allow you to have higher quality pictures from the jump. Is that what you're saying?
In theory, but there are other parameters I think you can see on Rarible. There's like quality parameter.
Right.
That's what really affects your quality. And simply put, level 30 is a big benchmark, because if you have minimum of level 30, then you can join something called main battles. So main battles, in order to join it, it has to be with a picture taken with the level 30 NFT camera. So, if you're up to below level 30, then you have to build your way up. Earn a little, upgrade your levels, and then when you get to level 30, you can start joining the main battles where you'll earn STPs. And then the rest is just like, if you're at like level 90 and your quality level is also like at a crazy number, then yeah, you'll be taking really good photos. So you can pick and choose. And obviously the price matters too, right? Because people who've been spending a lot of time and effort into upgrading it to like level 90, they're selling it for that much of a price. So
yeah, higher price. That makes sense. I'm seeing one here that's a level 24, so a little bit closer to 30. So if I'm understanding this correctly, so they must be like dynamic, essentially. They're dynamic NFTs where they're kind of, the metadata is able to change as you work with it, basically.
Exactly.
So you take it, you buy a level, this one's saying 16 here. So you buy a level 16 camera, you're starting at level 16. The more pictures you take, you're building up your levels, and the metadata is changing accordingly.
That's right.
Beautiful. That's amazing. I'm really impressed, man. This is really, really cool. I wanted to look under the hood of the actual like on-chain dynamics and the way that you're using these properties, whether it's the quality, the level, it's really cool. This one's quality 8. So what's a high quality one then? Is it out of 10 or what's it?
I think no. It goes way more. It's like quality. I think I forget the max. You know why I forget the max? Just so people don't kind of roast me. It's because despite me being in the project, I don't get any special treatment. So literally, my camera, I have like one NFT, which I have one NFT which is gifted to me at like level 1 and quality all 0. And I'm like, I still can't take really good photos. So
you got to grind it out, man.
I got to grind it out.
This is cool, though. This is cool. I'm here for it. So it sounds like there's a lot of total achievable market here in North America that you have not yet tapped into. So I definitely want to follow up with you and see what we can do there and help, raise awareness of the SNPIT out here in this side of the planet, because it's a really cool concept, man. I really love what you're building. I love the kind of story behind it. I like that you've taken this approach where you're trying to kind of volatility proof it, and really like take it to a place where it is fun and sticky and kind of rewarding outside of Web3, but then the Web3 angle is not hidden. It's very clear, and the value there in collecting the NFTs is very clear. So I really appreciate what you're doing, man. It's really amazing. I'm curious, because the 3D art is so 3D and it makes me think of the metaverse. Have you guys thought of the metaverse? Have you thought about taking, what kind of pictures you make on the app into a 3D immersive environment where people are walking around and showing off their stuff or anything like that?
Oh, I would love to do that, man. I've actually personally been thinking about it. I never even mentioned it to the team, or maybe I have mentioned it to the team, but yeah, we would love to do that. We're also open to collaborate with Metaverse, because like Metaverse projects, because your photos can obviously be our photos can be utilized to map out an environment in the Metaverse. So yeah, would love to do that, really.
And are they exportable? I mean, obviously cool. You could like screen grab it, but are they like made to be kind of shared and exported? Do you guys have like a social media share function or anything like that?
We do have a social media share function, but it will share with like a SNPIT frame. So for pretty much any, like if you really want to you actually utilize, basically as a database, utilize the photos, we're gonna have to have discussion, separate
Background discussion, eh? So it only exports with kind of the branding around it and SNPIT style. That's still kind of cool too, for sure. Oh, yeah, I've seen a couple other Web3 apps, or they were Web 2.5, I would call them, which maybe some people might say SNPIT is kind of a 2.5 space as well. But honestly, the Polygon, the NFTs, I would call it firmly Web 3 for sure. I love what you're doing. It's really awesome, man. So what are you like kind of most looking forward to around the corner? What should we be looking out for in 2025 as we wind down this conversation here?
Oh man, so we have a lot of announcements, big announcements coming up, literally starting in about 2 days. And December 8th to 10th, also we're gonna be basically kind of introducing what we have in store, what's the future of SNPIT. We're gonna be announcing that, and what's coming in 2025. And I don't know, are you an anime fan?
I am an anime fan, yes, for sure, especially from an art
So
perspective. I can't say I'm like a proficient
perfect.
expert on all the videos, all the movies, I definitely wouldn't pass the trivia test, but from an art perspective, I love anime. I have a lot of anime-based NFT art as well.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, so we recently just announced that we're going to be collaborating with this anime called "The Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime." So it's a pretty famous anime. I'm sure some people have seen it on Netflix. We also have some pretty crazy anime IPs that we're going to be collaborating with over the next few months. Yeah, I just really wish I could have mentioned the names here today. But
That's okay.
please stay
Maybe we
on
got to
hold,
reconnect,
especially.
and I know there's a
Yeah,
few
man.
there's a few really good anime-based, kind of Japan-based NFT projects that have been struggling a little bit in this downtime for the NFT space. So maybe we'll see some collaboration on that front.
We'll see, and we're also going to be collaborating some of the largest enterprises in the whole world
Damn.
within the next few months. Yeah,
Well, congratulations. Sounds like SNPIT is on the up and up. You got a lot to look forward to. I really appreciate your
appreciate it,
time,
brother.
Manny. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the guests or with the audience? Sorry. Any questions, any thoughts,
Yeah,
feedback?
no, I appreciate your time, Chrome, and yeah, would love for everyone to check out our socials and download the app, try it out, and let us know if there's anything you like. If there's something you don't like, you can let us know as long as you word it nicely. Yeah, really, really looking forward for everyone, in the English speaking regions to try our app out, and yeah, we'd love to see some new photos.
Amazing.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciated your time.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, man. And yeah, that you heard it here. We want to get more input from the Western audience as well. I know most of my audience is kind of America and Canada based, although we are fairly global. Shout out to India and different corners of Africa that are tuning in, and everywhere else, wherever you are around the world. But definitely, I'm going to be talking about SNPIT. I'm going to be bringing this up because, like I said, I'm kind of an amateur photographer, and I really do like the angle that you're taking with it. And I think the whole kind of monetization of the data and the idea that it is insular to the app, is an interesting way to take it, because you also still have kind of the on-chain component of it, and so that makes
Yeah,
it kind of fun. Whereas you're not really making NFTs of your photography, but you're using an NFT to kind of have fun with the app. And so I think it's a really cool concept that I never would have thought of. So shout out to Japan and to the community that's actually like bought in and made it so successful, because it's really hard for, like you say, killer apps or any apps to really find that level of success. So congrats again to the whole SNPIT team, and Annie, I really appreciate your time. And until next time, we'll catch you all in the metaverse. We'll be back in 2 weeks.